Hey guys, welcome to Descent Studios. I'm Marty, joined as always by Faye.
Hi.
This is actually kind of a different topic than like what we've been covering lately. Um, there's been a lot of cases of harassment on both sides of the board. There's been a lot of cases of you know small groups joining together and becoming cliques, and basically this is kind of to talk about these things. We will be joined by Tony Murphy, also known as Doc Hackenslash, as soon as he's available. But just to start off, I just want to kind of, go through a little bit of a statement that Faye and I came up with about this. And basically, the shitstorm from 4 years ago is back, partially because atheists have nothing more than a position in common and partially because we are all in a type of dungeon crawl of forever looping circular arguments. Some of these arguments have been constructed to trigger emotional responses from us to get us restricted or removed from Twitter or YouTube. We can't allow the frustration and reflexive biting to destroy what we have managed to achieve. We've made friends, we've made connections, we've made a community. Sure, it can be sloppy, slovenly, lovely, raw, classy, and oh so very human. So, how do we resolve this stress in these issues? Let's talk about it. Because we are up against not only the machine of organized religion, but also organized religious trolls. One important thing before we begin: don't name names, don't name groups. If you got to mention them, use a nickname. The subject isn't about them, it's about us and how to handle the crisis. So, Faye, why don't you lead off here for a couple here? I know that you have some things you've been wanting to say on this subject, and this will give us enough time to let Tony come in. And she's muted, so I guess that I'm going to lead this off.
No,
Um,
no, no, sorry. But what I was going to say is, I didn't mean to do that. I thought I was doing the opposite. I thought I was muted first. So I'm sorry if you heard me moving around, guys. But basically, what I wanted to say is one of the things that can help us is being honest with each other. I mean, one of our mutual friends and we all sat down and we had a discussion, a very difficult discussion the other night. But the thing is, nobody knows what's going on unless you open your mouth. And this isn't an invitation for people to say, "Do it my way or the highway. Do it my way or I block you." You know, that's not it. But dialogue with people. If someone's doing something in the community that you find irritating, talk to them because maybe they're doing it for a reason, or maybe it's none of your business, or maybe you need to make peace with it. But I do know that the circular arguments, the constant circular arguments, and Christians trying to trigger us all the time into fighting or saying something against the terms of service, I mean, that's the way they're getting us. They're wearing us down. They're making us tired. They're making us rage quit, or a lot of people have. I've lost a lot of good friends. Some were very active, and they ended up being mute at the end. And it's like, where'd you go? And then when they do tweet, they tweet about what they had for dinner, or and which is great. Don't get me wrong, because I still love every word out of their mouth. But it's like they stopped advocating online for the community. And we're not a well organized machine. We have nothing in common other than this position to a question. That's it. That's all we have in common. We're all different backgrounds. We don't have dogma. We don't have rules. but at the very least, we can respect each other, even if one of us is being a little batshit crazy. And I'm done.
And during the time that Faye was speaking, welcome, Tony.
Hi.
Glad to have you
again. Nice to be here. Yes.
Especially on this particular subject, which I know was one that, you and I had discussed a little bit. You came in a little bit late, so just to reiterate some of the rules that we put for this is don't name names, don't name groups. If you got to mention them, give them a nickname. We don't want to give any group or person that is against us any airtime.
You happy for me to call them all Cliques?
That works. Go for it.
So I don't know. I don't massively know what the topic was going to be. I sort of had an inkling, but not much more. An invite, and of course, I've been kind of distant the last few days. So,
and it's actually that's pretty much what triggered this entire discussion. Is the reason why you're distant,
right? And, I see.
And the one thing that you posted, that one meme,
right?
If you could pull that up and read that, that'd be awesome.
I can do that, sure.
Because that is actually something that's very, very relevant to this topic, is what you posted.
So are you talking about the sort of the first one before I disappeared for a bit?
Yes.
So, so it was about falling out about trivial bullshit. That's the one you're talking about, yeah?
Yep, that's it.
So I'd said, look, people, I get it, I really do. The world's going to fuck in an orange handbasket. It's hard, and it's especially hard to keep a grip on our emotions in such a climate, with division and discord being sown everywhere. However, when friends start going at each other in public over stupid fucking disagreements about trivial shit that really doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things, we need to stop and think. I'm getting seriously fucked off with all of this pointless bickering and snapping at each other, putting a huge dent in my normally calm and passive demeanor. Fucking stop it. Is that the one you meant?
Well, there's that one, which I actually didn't realize. It's the one where you were talking about. Let me see if I can find it real quick here.
So is it the parting shot before I disappeared?
I think it was the parting shot before you disappeared.
Okay. So after that, I'd said basically that I was going to disappear for a bit and that I'd keep checking my direct messages, but I wasn't really going to be around because it was getting too much like the comment section of a YouTube video. And then, of course, I got a flurry of DMs and my phone went into overdrive with pings from people. So I tweeted again, just so that people are aware, because my phone's been pinging since my last tweet. I'm about where one of my good friends was yesterday at the moment, and about 5 minutes from pulling the master plug. I don't want anybody to worry, but I need some time away from the toxicity. People I care deeply about are falling out over bullshit that matters considerably less than friendship, and it's wrecking my ability to think straight and to keep the world from overwhelming me. We really need to think about the impact of stupid fallings out on those around us and who care about us, rather than wallowing in our own feelings to the exclusion of all else. Ask yourself about whether a reaction is warranted or helpful, especially among our allies and those who actually give a shit.
Oh, yeah. All of these are totally relevant, and it's perfect. I mean, it really shows exactly.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I couldn't agree more. That was beautifully written. Really appreciated that.
Yeah, and I mean, it's definitely something. And I mean, another point that we need to raise is that there's been something that has occurred that some people have done, calling for mass reportings. And this is something that I've seen, quote unquote, our side do.
Yeah.
Calling for mass reportings, mass blockings, things that are absolutely against the terms of service of Twitter, of YouTube. And these are things that will get us banned. Somebody made a comment to me, you know, if they're going to hurt us, let's hurt them back. And it's like, no. We have to be better than that.
Yes.
I mean, we can't use the same tactics. Otherwise, we just become the same as them. Just
that's correct.
Different. Yeah. You know, it doesn't work that way. It can't work that way. Tony, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I had I'd kind of tweeted because of course there was the I know the thing you're talking about now with somebody who we're all aware of and an association that this person has with another group of people and sort of some of their tactics. That's what you're talking about, isn't it? And I just don't see where this gets us, if I'm honest. I mean, regardless of the fact that it breaches Twitter's terms of service, I don't see where it gets us. Now, it's true to say that this association is one that we should all be willing to look at. That if we're associated with such a group because we support them in any way, we kind of expose ourselves as supporting the toxic stuff that they do and say as well. And of course that's something that's really for the individual to look at. It's not something that's really for us to discuss in any way. I think that the point is that we need to look at our associations, and if we're engaging in the kind of behavior that we're calling them out for, then we're as bad as they are, and I've got no time for that. And I think that if you're associating with somebody, that's really your call. I think if you're associating with somebody who exposes the kind of thinking that everybody should find toxic, and you're happy to associate with them, that's about your credibility. And you know, our engagement with that person shouldn't be predicated on who they associate with, and you know, deal with the person and their ideas, I think, is what I'm really trying to get at. If we're dealing with stuff that's not being directly promulgated by the person we're interacting with, then we're not just doing them a disservice, we're doing ourselves a disservice by you know, it's like for example, if we're in a discussion with a believer and we say, look, you believe in a magic man in the sky, and the person you're talking to says, well, that doesn't reflect the God I believe in. And you say, oh, well, you know, you think the earth is 6,000 years old, and they say, well, that's not my belief. They may know people and associate with people and like and retweet the tweets of people who believe these things, but actually, unless you're dealing with them with the ideas that they're putting forward, then what are we doing? You know, the ideas are what we should be here to challenge, not the people. You know, people are people, and they have feelings. And I have to hold my hands up and say, sometimes I cross the line and get over aggressive, and I have been known to lapse into name calling when I get frustrated with people's dishonesty. But at the end of the day, what we should be challenging is the ideas. That's how we get our message across. That's how we teach people to think properly. I think attacking everybody is just the wrong way to go about it. Whether that attack takes the form of, you know, bulk reporting and all of that. Let's you know, let's take the Michelle Obama route. When they go low, we'll go high, and let's just stay there. Let's retain the intellectual and moral high ground. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't think that there's a single one of us that is disagreeing with what you're saying. It's just a matter of putting it into practice. It's a matter of making certain that we follow these little I'm not going to call them rules or policy, because you know that would make it like an atheist dogma, and we don't have any. Just suggestions. I mean, it's, you know, Christians have the love the sinner, hate the sin. Well, why don't we just, you know, realize that everybody's a person, everybody's a human, and that, you know, it's the ideas, it's the concepts, the beliefs that we're challenging, not the person personally.
Absolutely. It's the thinking we should be going after.
That's Exactly. You nailed it right on the head there. It's the thinking.
I've been known to do that on occasion.
Yeah, and this is just what we, even though we are a group, we are a community, but the only thing that we all really agree on is the fact that we don't buy the God claim because of the lack of evidence. And this is basically the only thing that we have in common.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And go ahead, Tony.
No, I was just agreeing with you. Yeah. I think that Fey was saying hello to Rene.
Yep, and Rene here, because we want other people to participate in this and make their statements, we publicly made known that we were going to give people 5 minutes.
Oh, I found the meme you were talking about.
Oh, you finally found the actual one I was talking about.
I finally found the actual one you were talking about. So let me deliver that before you bring Rene in.
Absolutely.
So, there's been a spate of back and forth among some of my friends and followers and followees and some of our purported opponents, and it's beginning to get really toxic. Threats, veiled or otherwise, are entirely unhelpful and inappropriate, and it needs to stop. The things that Mayhem is saying, Cletus is saying, are entirely bullshit. His perception of the persecution of Christians by atheists is entirely founded on the fact that he acts a complete twat in discourse and is a bigot of the highest order. The suggestion that some might wish to distance themselves from him is one that's founded in having very little to say to such an open bigot who freely tosses around racist and homophobic epithets as if they have no impact. The response he gets to such behavior is entirely appropriate. That he thinks this is how atheists behave toward all Christians is neither here nor there. It doesn't occur to him that it's his behavior that engenders strong negative responses. That said, if the Christians I engage with wish to retain their association with him and the crowd that he represents, that's up to them. I find it difficult to take anybody seriously from a moral standpoint while they won't call out this unconscionable behavior. Your association with him and his toxic rhetoric speaks to stupid groupthink. However, that doesn't mean we're justified in similar unconscionable behavior ourselves. From this point on, I will unfollow or block anybody who engages in such behavior toward anybody. If it doesn't stop soon, I'll simply withdraw from the community. I have no interest in getting into shit fights and cop measuring. This does nobody any favors, and we learn precisely fuck all from it. That is all. Carry on.
That is the one that really triggered this conversation that we're having.
Yeah.
That is the one that... it shows so perfectly the situation that we're in. And Cletus, I love that nickname.
It's good, isn't it? It's not my cool hard logic. I blame him for that.
Yep, Cletus. Yep, Cletus tends to bring out the worst in us and people who are associated with Cletus.
Yes, indeed.
And they purposely do this. They purposely target us.
Don't forget Rene.
Yep. And Rene, if you want to unmute and join the discussion here, more than ready and willing to give you the 5 minutes. Is he even still in here?
Well, his face is still there.
He's here, but I don't think he's ready.
I don't believe that for a second. Rene's always ready.
Hello, can you hear me?
See?
Yep.
There you are.
Ah, okay. Yeah, I had difficulty turning my sound on. Well, 5 minutes, right? So, first of all, I wanted to thank you, Marty, and you, Fey, for the opportunity to be on here and give sort of my input. So, the topic is harassment and cliques, right? So I think we are sort of all in these kind of cliques in general. I mean, we all find our little groups, but I think what Tony said certainly rings true. I mean, we have to watch out that we behave better than the persons or the people we're engaging with. I mean, I know maybe some of the people of the let's call them the Euro, yeah, like these sort of groups, these groups who don't like atheists all that much, and I don't, or the people who speak badly about us, and I don't think we should go after them in a way that we have to report them, or we have to get them off the internet. I think that's certainly the wrong way to deal with them. I think we should set an example. We should try to be nice to them, as difficult as they make it, because some of them can be very demeaning and very insulting, but I think we need to really show that we can be the bigger man in some situations. Like with...
woman.
What?
Oh, woman.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Sorry. I'm a little bit nervous.
It's a trigger. No, that's all right. It's a trigger for me that at the moment.
Yeah, I'm just a little bit nervous, and I'm just speaking on.
No need to be nervous,
right.
Rene. You always come across very well. You've no need to be nervous.
Yeah, you're absolutely fine, man. Don't worry. Just keep going.
You are loved.
Thank you. So you're loved too, by the way. So
You say that to all the ladies, don't you?
Not really, but I definitely have some friends in general who I very much appreciate. And yeah, what was I saying? Like, continuing with the topic at hand, these people, they really can get on my nerves, and I have some of them blocked because with some of the comments I just can't deal. But trying to get them off the internet, trying to report them is just one step. I mean, we need to show that we are decent people. We already, as atheists, I know we already have the stigma that we can't be moral, and we just need to show that that's not the case. We need to be nice. We need to call other people out if they are demeaning, if they say sexist or racist or discriminatory stuff against us or anybody really. But I think going to mass reporting or going low in some instances, let's say, I think that's really just the wrong approach in general. I think we, of course, we need to also, what was I saying? We need to, we don't have to take shit from them, but we don't need to have them insulting us. But going to mass reporting is just, I think, not cool. We need to expose them in a way, but not the internet. I think that's not cool. I mean, other people try to report us, they try to report my friends, and we're often successful, but just because someone disagrees with us is not grounds for trying to silence them.
Absolutely. And may I interject briefly?
Go right ahead, Tony, because actually...
because there's actually a really important point to be had there.
Go for it.
And it goes back to something that was going on sort of late last year and sort of around the summer and into the autumn. And actually something that we should all have become keenly aware of in the last couple of years, namely that what we do when we try to silence people, when we try to sort of push them out of the public spaces where they can speak, is we drive them underground. And we know from since the Brexit referendum in Britain and since the Trump election in the US, we've seen the rise of the far right. We've seen people who we've always known were there, but we didn't really know to what extent, Now we can see them, they're front and center. And to be honest, I think that's where we need to keep them. We need to keep them where we can see them, where we can keep challenging them. So, for example, all this business with punching Nazis last year, that, you know, where we're anything that we do to try to stymie discourse and to try to silence the opposition plays into their hands, because all we ever do, the very best that we can do is drive them underground. And that is exactly the wrong thing to do. We need to keep them where we can see them and where we can challenge and fight them. So it's a mistake to try to get rid of them and to try to curtail them in that way. Let's bring them into the dialogue, and let's fix them with ideas and have the better ideas and beat them that way, because we have the better ideas. There's no doubt about that.
Okay. Faye wanted to respond for a moment to Rene. And Faye, you're muted, so okay, there you go.
Yeah. Rene, I think you had some really, really excellent points, and I'm so glad that you came on and say them. Indeed. I really appreciate that. And one other thing is, you know, as far as reporting someone, I do it. I just don't want people calling for it. But if people do call for it, just be aware that it is against the terms of service. And if someone, say, you know, had an open investigation on the mass reportings and saw the same names each time, I don't doubt that Twitter would ban all 20 accounts or how many accounts that responded to a certain person each time. So not calling for mass bans is also a way to keep everyone on, because we do need these voices. Not just to oppose the voices who are saying these horrible things, but also our voices. We can't keep changing our names or changing our profiles or spelling it with a small letter L or a capital I or this or that or a different nickname, because we can't find each other then. So yeah. I think trying not to get banned and not to get our friends banned is really important. And that's all I'm going to say.
Definitely.
Absolutely. I just want to thank Rene for giving us 5 minutes of his time to make his statement, and echo exactly what everybody else has been saying, which is that what he said was spot on. I want to go a little bit further.
He's always good.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if you read Rene's blog, which once we're done with this, Rene, get me the link through DM on Twitter, and I'll put it in the description.
Yeah, I will just send you the link. And again, I want to thank you for having me. And I'm glad if I could join back at another time, but thank you.
No, thank you. Thank you.
Thanks for coming on, man. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
See you later, or in the YouTube chat. Bye.
Take care, bro.
Okay. You too, man.
What I wanted to say is that the calling for mass reporting or mass blocking, there is a member of our own team, so to speak, and that's in massive air quotes, that has called for this against other atheists. If you're a friend of so-and-so, then you might as well remove me or block me or whatever. And
yeah. I know. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yes. And this person has done this multiple times throughout the past 6 months. And I'll admit that I used to be part of this person's clique. And this is something that we need to curtail ourselves to, is we can't be doing this whole manipulation bullcrap. We can't be manipulating each other and saying that, you know what, if you're friends with so-and-so, then you can't be a friend with me. It's garbage.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's and I'm seeing this a lot. And within the past 2 to 3 months, I've seen probably a dozen people drop off the face of the Twitterverse, just totally disappear. And it's partially because of shit like this.
Yeah.
this infighting has to stop too.
Yes, it does.
And if you've got an issue with somebody, like we did with a mutual friend, you take it into a direct message conversation. You take it into a voice a Skype call, whatever it takes to settle it outside of the, and I'm going to say it, outside of the public view. You don't call.
Or just block and move on and call it a game.
Exactly. I mean, if you're having that much issues with somebody, realize that, you know what, the issues that you are having with that person are the issues that you're having with that person. And that somebody else probably isn't having those exact same issues.
Exactly. For example, I have some people on my block list that you're friends with. You're not friends with all of my friends. I'm not friends with all your friends. But the thing is, we get along, and you're not telling me that I have to follow all your people and you have to vote. Everyone's an individual, so we can't put our own personal rules on other people. Oh,
sorry, I couldn't resist.
Really?
You're just in a class by yourself, Tony. We know that.
No, well, the thing is that I see these cliques and I kind of despair of it to some degree. I avoid them. I suspect that lots of little cliques see me as a member of their clique, but it's not.
Well, you have to think of it this way.
Not something I engage with. I just engage with people, you know.
The thing is, a lot of atheists are brand new. Like, they've left their religion, they've left their church. They're looking for community.
Yeah, fellowship.
So, of course, they're going to be bonding with a certain group, or a couple of different people who really seem to speak their language, and there's nothing wrong with that. The only thing that becomes wrong, and they don't have to obey me, and they don't have to listen to me, but this is food for thought. This isn't rules for the community. This is just food for thought. What was I saying? Oh no. No, but
you were talking about replacement of fellowship, weren't you? So
yeah, replacement of the fellowship, and that's fine too. But every now and again, check yourself and make sure your indoctrination isn't seeping through, and that you're not acting like a churchy.
Yeah, couldn't agree more.
Yeah, it's that's actually when I first came on the scene, and it's only been a year ago. I mean, a lot of people are like, "Oh man, I've known you for years," and it's just like, no, I've only been here for about a year, and that's when I came out publicly, online and everything, and I was so desperate for community and so desperate for the fellowship.
Yeah.
And, I fell in with a clique. Big time. I mean, and these cliques often do have mass direct message groups. Sometimes it's 3 or 4 people in one, sometimes it's more. And the theists, the people, the cliques of the theist side do the same thing. But, there is evidence of a certain Cletus who is a member of some that are part of
the Cletus Collective.
Yeah, Cletus Collective. And they are part of reporting group.
Yeah.
Basically. And I'm really trying to, not reveal anything more while I'm saying this.
Yeah, I think that the one person that if I'm right about who's being discussed is somebody who
I've seen it
has got a fiery temper and has gone to bat for a lot of people and has looked after a lot of people by going what I call full hack and slash on them, and is very good at it. But again, you know, that kind of makes it it makes it difficult to challenge that behavior when it becomes like that, and it's a shame.
Well, the thing is,
I need to make a comment real quick about now we all love BJ Price. We all love BJ Price. I mean, absolutely.
I wanted to have my children.
I'm not going that bloody far. Oh God, no! I'm already married with two.
Yeah, what's marriage got to do with it? No, she's lovely. She's lovely. I'm a big fan.
Yeah. Okay. A very interesting statement that she made was, having been part of religious tribes, I've no intention of joining atheist tribes.
Correct.
Now, this is both a good and a bad thing. Okay. In my opinion, we. Sorry, Tony. She's past the days of having kids.
That's all right. We'll adopt.
Okay. Well, you got an answer for everything.
Yep.
I wouldn't say that we need tribes. I'd say that we need a community where all of these tribes can come together.
I'm not sure I entirely agree. I think we'd have to really define what we mean by community. I do think that that we need to work together. I don't think that necessarily requires community, but I think the most important thing, one of the things that I find brilliant about you know all the atheists that I know, and I know many thousands of them. I don't know how many you're aware, but I was quite a prolific member on the Richard Dawkins forum when it was still running, and I was co-founder of the forum that replaced it. And you know, we had 85,000 members there, and probably sort of 8 to 10,000 active members. You know, prolific members, and I was kind of in the more prolific. So I've interacted with an awful lot of atheists, and the thing that I find it absolutely brilliant about it is the utter diversity of it. And I think diversity is actually the more important factor. I do think it's important that we learn to work together, but I don't necessarily think that means that we need to have that kind of you know, something that we can define as a community. I do understand though that especially people who are new out of, you know, who freshly shed their beliefs and kind of come to a relationship with reality, do kind of miss that for the fellowship aspects of what they had. It's not something I can really relate to because I've never really believed it. I've always been a bit of a loner, to be honest. Although I do love interacting with people, as I'm sure you can all tell. The need, that kind of need for fellowship and community isn't one that I really have any experience of, but it's the diversity that I find intriguing, because it's looking at the same thing but from different perspectives all the time, and that's the thing that gets my juices flowing. You know, the fact that we can come at this from completely different angles and still have these amazing discussions about, you know, the nitty-gritty of I mean, let's face it. Most of the time, we're just talking about the asinine, the silly beliefs that we're challenging and that sort of thing, rather than actually discussing the fact that we don't believe in God. Because what's the point? I don't believe in God. There you go. That's the end of that discussion. Let's move on to something more interesting. But I do like the interaction. But I don't necessarily think. I don't know. I think the word community is thrown around a lot without really any robust definition given. I think that's really where I'm coming from.
Well, then that's actually a discussion that we need to have. I mean, it's something that we need to look at and need to.
I'll talk. Anyway, if anyone wants their 5 minutes, please let us know in the chat so that we can get you on. And the other thing I wanted to say is that it's been more than one person over the last 4 years who's been, trying to organize atheists in a more aggressive kind of way.
Yeah.
But as far as your comment about community, you can be a lone wolf, you can be a group of three, you can be a group of five. It's like a neighborhood, basically. Everyone's doing their own thing, but
Yeah.
in the end, you're all here for the same reason. And if somebody's house burns down, you give them comfort.
And I get that. I think really what I'm getting, I suppose it's less the word community and more the word movement, because I don't really feel like I'm part of any movement, but people talk about the atheist movement all the time. And I kind of have interacted with most of the prominent alleged members of this movement, and none of them feel like they're part of a movement, as far as I can tell. And some of them have expressed that they don't. So I don't. I think it's easy to focus in the wrong place, and I think I'm always of the opinion that we should focus on the ideas, and everything I deal with is kind of how we think about things, and that's so I tend to dissect an awful lot and analyze and possibly even overanalyze to some degree. So yeah.
Well, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. It helps us to open up the lines of dialogue and conversation, sometimes more than what we're doing at any one point in time.
I think BJ should come in and talk about what she just mentioned in the chat.
Oh, absolutely, because I was actually just about to head in that direction there. But, I can definitely foresee a part 2 to this in some time. Gonna go for
Peter
it.
Wants to come on.
Yep. Okay. Let me go get Peter the link. Actually, he's already got it.
Yes, I agree with you, Beach. What do you call it? I do think indoctrination is part of some of our behavior. Not mine, because I've never been there.
Yeah, I think the more relevant point was that it was the question that do we still engage in the kind of binary thinking that indoctrination instills in us? Is it, do we think in those sort of black and white either or terms, or how many of us have actually managed to get a grasp of of fuzzy concepts and things existing on a spectrum rather than prongs of a dilemma, if you see what I mean. Well, that's what I took from what she was saying.
Yeah, and to be honest, it's something that Fey can absolutely go with. Can absolutely say that what I'm about to say is true. Is that a lot of times, a lot of the things that she and I end up discussing the most is trying to deprogram something from me.
Yeah.
To make me aware of it and go, okay, you know what? This has a root.
Yeah.
And she has helped me realize a lot of that. And I don't know. I think that I've loosened up quite a bit since she and I first started talking. She's the one that would have to be able to.
Have you seen my piece? Yeah.
Have
you seen my piece about? Sorry, I keep over talking you, thinking you've gone.
The inertia of ideas.
Yes, cognitive inertia and patterns.
Yep, that led you and I down a rabbit trail of music talk for about 2 hours.
Oh, it did, didn't it? Yes. Yep. I never remember. I have these discussions with so many people. I never remember who I've covered what ground with. But yeah, part of the problem is. I also did a piece about education called Promoting Atheism and Why I Don't, and it's about we have this thing as children. Our brains are extremely plastic, but we are also hardwired to be gullible, and that's a problem. And as we grow older, we become less gullible. But the more ideas are put in there, when you couple this with the idea of cognitive inertia and kind of the patterns that get laid down when you're young, you find that you build up these complexes of ideas that become really difficult to shift because all of these ideas reinforce each other. So it's like the stones in a pyramid. and getting at just finding the right stone that you can pull out, that makes the whole thing come crashing down. That's the hard part of getting at indoctrination, and that's really what it boils down to. And quite often, you find that you have to pick away at the stones. So you put in an idea that can't be challenged, that they have no way, that they have to accept as true, but that contradicts one of those core ideas. And when you get enough of those stones removed, the whole thing comes crashing down. If you're really lucky, you'll find the one stone, because there is always one stone. There's always one foundational idea upon which all is predicated. And occasionally I've found that with people that if I can just tease out what that one idea is, that underlying bit of logic that kind of everything that they believe is founded on, and remove it, then it all comes crashing down, and it can be quite spectacular. I mean, it can be painful as well. But actually, those are the best. Those are in many cases, those are kind of the best defeaters of beliefs, because when it all comes crashing down at once, you start with a blank slate, and it's so easy to kind of to drive that interest in the things that, in the right kind of thinking, so that you can find things out for yourself and learn and find out where it is. So anyway, that was enough waffle. I see that somebody's made it in.
Yep. Peter, glad to have you on the show.
Somebody's made it in. So,
and you weren't even summoned.
Hey, sweetie pie.
I was summoned, Tony, but you didn't know this.
I did.
I got at least 3 DMs that I should be here, so no excuse not to be here. First of all, let me say I love it that you're back.
Thank you.
I need someone to fight with, and my best sparring partner needs to be around for that.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Okay. Yeah, I did want to weigh in just a little bit, because I think it's not all that black and white. I agree with the cliques setting rules for each other. I'm sorry to say that has happened to me as well, where you can't talk to certain people, or you can't even talk about certain people, and so I think that's hurting our community as a whole. So those are things we shouldn't do. We all have different friends. We all have different views, and we're individuals, and we should be proud of being individuals, and we shouldn't become a collective mind with set rules. So that's where I agree. What I do see as a problem is the fact that there are more and more groups popping up who are mass reporting, and to me that's a problem, and I think that's something we need to counter.
Yeah, I think that it's something we need to find a way to do something about. But I don't think that calling for mass reportings in return, or for calling for any sort of group activity beyond having a discussion about what's the best way to approach this. I do think we need to find a way of addressing this within Twitter, but I think we need to do it in a smarter way than kind of calling for mass reportings and mass blockings. And
no, there I agree. It shouldn't be done in the way of mass reporting, because there's nothing to report. If you can't prove that these people are in some kind of DM group where they just pitch each other accounts or tweets that need to be reported, there's nothing that you can do about it. And I have to say, I'm in one of these groups targeting I think specific things. I recently bumped into a guy who had an account full of child pornography. That's an account that I will pitch in a DM group and say, hey, guys, go have a look at this. We can't have this on Twitter. And he had nude,
That's fair enough.
and he had
That
nude
is
pictures
fair
on there.
enough.
So, and the same goes for people in that I think are vile, are making certain comments about the Holocaust and stuff like that. So it isn't that black and
That I don't agree with.
I don't know. If there's a certain tweet that should be reported, I don't have a problem with showing other people this tweet and saying, so what do you think?
Oh,
Well,
okay.
I wouldn't.
I see the distinction. Wait 1 second.
Yeah.
When they do it to us, they use certain triggers that get under our skin, like atheism is a religion, and we all know it's not. And it does trigger an emotional response. We have several, at least a dozen that I've identified that drive us crazy. And usually the responses can be pretty vile. And they're tricking us into a response. It's one thing if someone's been tricked into a response that gets them reported. It's another thing if someone says something like, ooh, look at this, like this group of people are beasts and should be executed. Yeah, if someone says, hey, take a look at this. But the way I would say it is not they shouldn't be on Twitter, just take a look at this, because the individual who is responsible will report that. They don't need to be prompted.
No, I know.
Yeah. And actually, I was about to say something similar, where what I would do in a situation like that is I would report it and I would just retweet it without comment and leave it at that. I think where you're talking about the comments where they say things in a way of triggering us, I think there's a way that we can address that. And I just had an idea while you were talking. I think we should just start a new hashtag, and the response should just be this hashtag, and it should be thank you, Cletus, and leave it at that. Just respond, hashtag thank you, Cletus, and give them no other response. Give them nowhere to go.
That's actually a good idea.
Why even bother challenging them on it?
Here first, it's thank you, Cletus.
Yeah.
And we could get that, but between the number of followers we've got, between the 10 people here and we could easily get this as a trending hashtag without having to give it any comment. We're all in enough small chat groups that we can explain what it's about. Get that hashtag trending among all our atheist friends, and when they say these ridiculous things, just hashtag thank you, Cletus, and out, and leave it at that. Give them nowhere to go.
I kind of like that idea.
Yeah, and there's another thing. There's what I also think is not a black and white line, is the line between a group of friends and a clique. With group who aren't a clique.
Yeah, you cut out for me a couple of times.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that could be. Could be that I have about 200 windows open, so I'm on the Steam powered computer at the moment. I don't have my regular laptop at hand.
Right.
As I said, it's a little bit difficult to talk about cliques and groups of friends. I'm in several groups with friends who are not a clique.
Yeah, same here.
The difference is, Peter, is when it's kind of like a clique is like a MMORPG guild, but with no one person.
Yeah, I know the difference. I know the difference. I'm just saying it's a fluid border, because what starts out as a group of friends can easily become a clique.
See, I don't really have a problem with cliques as long as it as long as people's indoctrination isn't showing through.
Yeah.
if that makes any sense.
I need to interrupt for a minute here. We said that we'd give 5 minutes to everybody. And thank you, Peter.
Oh, you want me out, Marty?
No, you just used up the 5 minutes.
we love you, Peter. We do.
You know we love you. We're just trying to keep things under control. You know that.
We love you long time.
And you all know that I usually talk too much anyway, so kicking me out is probably the best way to do it.
No, because we're going to be talking about this a couple of times, so we want you back.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So,
I'll
put a link
to again.
Yep, and I'll put a link to your channel in the description when we're done. So,
great, thanks.
Yep.
And Tony, again, good to have you back and good to hear your voice, mate.
Thank you very much, mate. It's nice to be back. And I'm not all the way there yet, but I'm feeling positive, and I think a few more good ass whoopings on Twitter, and I'll be back to full strength.
Okay. Should you feel the need to give an ass whooping, you know where to find me, and there's always a good reason for that.
No, I never knew that was your thing. After all this time,
I was going to say that better be on camera so I can enjoy it.
Okay. Hey, thanks for having me.
Anytime, Peter.
See you guys.
Cheers, dude.
See you guys later.
Take care.
Bye.
One of the things that he was talking about, and I agree in some respects, is the group of friends versus clique being fluid. And yeah, I agree in some ways, but here's the thing, okay? Coming from the kid that was outside of every clique always when he was young, the way to tell a clique is when the clique, that group of friends, becomes exclusionary to everybody else, period.
Yep. I'm with you, because I was always that kid as well.
Yeah, so, when that group of friends becomes completely exclusionary, that's when it becomes a clique, period.
Yeah.
And when they start harassing other people in a gang style, like the Cliques Collective.
Yeah.
You
like that one, don't you? You're keeping that.
I love it. I love it. It's perfect. It's perfect. So, we have some very good.
I do think we need to be careful though, because actually there is always. I mean, of course, it was said in jest, but that there is always a risk when you take something like that on, that actually you become that kind of railroaded in your thinking, and we have to be really, really careful of that, because it's such a danger. It's so easy just to kind of get blinkered and to miss the wood for the trees, just because you kind of focus on that one thing. And it's one of the things that I've come across. I've done quite a few discussions with people now, and of course, I've been debating for nearly 2 decades on the net, but I've had a few discussions, and I can actually hear the keywords landing now. When I'm in discussion with somebody, I can hear what the response is going to be, because I can hear the little audio triggers that tell you when they've picked up on a keyword.
Absolutely.
So I had a discussion a while back, that I think everybody here has probably seen by now on Peter's channel. And as I was talking, I could hear those little audio cues where I could hear a kind of an autonomic response to a particular word. And then when the response came back to the thing that I'd said, you could tell that she was only responding to the key words. So, for example, I talked about an argument from ignorance, and actually I was explaining what an argument from ignorance was and why it isn't calling somebody ignorant, and the response was almost word for word, "Are you saying I'm ignorant?" So you could tell they've just picked up on the key words, and they're responding to those.
Absolutely.
And when we take
a debate that I know exactly who you're talking about.
Yeah,
and the person
it's something. Yeah. Yeah, it's something that I've worked. I've done. I'm a musician by profession, but that's such transient work that I've done all sorts of jobs over the years. And one of the things that I've done is I've taught customer service. One of the things that I've taught in that is the difference between active and passive listening. And passive listening is where you're kind of not really paying attention. You're just kind of picking up on the things that you think are important from the sentence. Whereas active listening analyzes the whole sentence for context to make sure that you get the full message. It's like, would you going into a quiz and listening to only half the question, and wondering why you did badly, you know? And I think that when you sort of start to attach labels like that, it's fine to do it in jest, for a bit of comedy, for our entertainment here on YouTube while we're mucking about. But I think we have to be really careful about the dangers of that kind of thinking, because it's too easy to get railroaded into that, to railroad your own thinking in that way. And you know, it's dangerous, and I think we should be careful of it.
Absolutely. It's you know, and that falls hand in hand with you know, the harassment issue. You know, it's easy for us to reverse the situation for a moment here. It's very easy for us to use these same tactics, these same cues, to get a rise out of them.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, for example, the thank you Cliques hashtag, I think that's perfectly valid, because as long as it's used in that manner, as long as it's only to address an obvious attempt at triggering, then I think that's a perfectly valid use. I think it forces them to be. Oh, we have a co-star. I think it forces them to be more careful in the way they're formulating their arguments. I think that once they realise they're not getting a rise out of us with these triggers, then they'll just stop it. And if they don't, then they're just going to look stupid. And I've got no problem with that, as long as it's not us making them look stupid. As long as it's them doing it, I've got no problem with that at all. I'd rather they worked hard at correcting it. But
I mean, the major thing is that, you know, we have to be careful of the way that we bring things across, because we don't want to be purposely triggering for an emotional response to the point of, okay, they flew off the handle at us, we can report them now. No, that is harassment. That is what we're against. That's what this entire thing's against. This entire group think crap is what we're trying to avoid.
Yeah. And Beej just made a fantastic and incredibly relevant point that that it would probably help to view religious people as possible future Seth Andrews or Matt Dillahunties, or, you know,
me.
Yeah, or you. Because the simple fact is that anybody can be cured of this thinking if you find the right key. Anybody. I don't care what anybody says. Nobody is so nailed in that you can't, if you work at it, and if you it does take treating them with a modicum of respect, and sometimes that can be difficult, especially when they display the kind of dishonesty that we see. But we have to be aware that that dishonesty is a symptom of the mind virus that they're carrying around with them. It's not their fault. It really isn't. You know, and even Captain Cliques himself, it's not his fault. And you know, and I fully understand where he's coming from, and I sympathise with him. It's very difficult to sympathise with him when you're actually listening to him speak and just screaming epithets.
Yeah, the racial and the homophobic epithets and the ethnic slurs and everything.
Indeed.
You know, it's, you know, it's hard for, when he's doing that, it's hard to feel sympathy for him.
Mm-hmm.
But then you also have to realize that Captain Cletus obviously has a slight mental disorder.
That's true.
Yeah.
But you know, the other thing is that there's another sort of side to that, and it's something that I heard him admit in a chat with Peter and Karis some time ago, in which he admitted that his entire goal is is to turn what he sees as the tactics of atheists around. So he thinks that we engage in this specific tactic, and we're just like throwing out these epithets. The difference is that we can actually pick apart what we've said and say, here's why this is the case. This is the underlying logic behind what I'm saying. Where when you ask him to do that, you get the kind of, the response that we saw from him when he was asked for references and citations, suggesting that he wasn't an unpaid employee. To put it as nicely as I can. Yeah. Oh yeah, you're right, Peter. It was Molly Carrot.
Yeah. Okay. Actually, I was going to say that if there's nobody else that wants their 5 minutes, I was going to have Faye and Tony give some final thoughts.
Yeah. So I think ultimately what it boils down to is that we need to be smarter about how we have these discussions. That there is a danger of this kind of railroaded thinking that we have to think a certain way or be a certain way, and really all we have to do is to challenge the foundations of thinking. And if they're not going to engage us in those terms, then we shouldn't engage them in those terms. Hence the "Thank You, Cliques" hashtag, which I think I'm going to write a blog post about, by the way, because I think that's just a really good idea, and I think we should all work to promote that.
I agree. I agree completely, because it's mocking, but it's not to the point of harassing. It's like, it's
not
a way
vile
to point out how ridiculous someone is.
Yeah, and I think we need to
hold on, Tony, just real quick here. I have to bring up the flurfers just because Rene told us not to.
Oh, I did my first flurf meme in months today, and I haven't done one in ages.
Oh my God.
But I only did it in a group because it was before I'd kind of come back out into the public eye again. So maybe I'll retweet that. Yeah,
definitely.
They are a different class. They're a different class, and God bless them. So just be smart, people. Be smart and be better than that, and take the high ground, because we can. We own the high ground. We've got the facts and we're right. And
that it's the truth, because we have reality. We have the scientific evidence on our side, and this they might throw that out, but the fact of the matter is that when it comes down to it, their own book says in Hebrews 11:11.
Oh.
I think he muted himself.
I think he froze, actually.
Maybe.
Never mind. That means I get to chat you up for a while.
Ah, excellent. Excellent.
Yeah.
No, but I have to say, anyone present, if you see me losing my collective shit, feel free to call me on it, because I have a really hard time when they talk about this type of person or that type of person isn't allowed, or that I have to obey. I tend to, like, a little switch in my brain switches, and the Jersey girl comes out, and oh yeah, and the attitude, and it's not necessarily a good thing, and I know my temper's not a good thing, and I'm trying. I'm not good at it, but I'm trying.
Yeah. So and I'll say the same. And listen, I'm really sorry, but I've just had some news. My grandmother's died. So I have
oh my
to.
God, I'm so sorry.
No, it's okay. I mean, she's been suffering dementia for quite a few years. It's kind of more like she died 10 years ago, and she's finally stopped moving. But as you can appreciate,
yes,
it's
I can.
it's not an easy situation. So I have to go over to my mother's and and be of some comfort there.
Of course. If you need us,
so
we're here for you.
That you're really, really kind. Thank you very much, Faye, and say thank you to Marty, and thank you all to all those in the chat, and to Rene and to Peter, and really sorry Beej didn't get on while I was here. And
maybe one day we'll have Beej on.
Yeah, I'll beat her into submission until she says yes. Or actually, now that we know that Peter's into that kind of thing, maybe he can do it. Right. Anyway, so listen, thanks very much. But yeah, just work smarter, people. We can do better than this. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks very much for having me on, and I'll speak to you all soon.
All right. Have a good one.
And you take care.
Beej, you said.
Okay. I don't know if I'm back on or not. Had a major and complete crash of my connection just now. So we're going to have to call this one quits. We will return to the subject. We will have a part 2. Just basically be good to each other.